There was no Irishman that had succeeded in the UFC. There was no one. I could not look to my mother and father and say, look at this Irishman, look at his successful fighting career, because there was no one before me. So I was the first one. I had to convince them what I was going to do.
The UFC is filled with embarrassing scandals, and the fans love it. Let's take a look at some UFC fighters that were caught in pretty awkward situations, starting with the most controversial UFC fighter of the century, Conor McGregor. The Notorious is back in the news, folks. Only this time it's because of a picture that's making rounds all over the internet. In it, you see Conor in a compromising position, but not with his fiancée. Instead, McGregor's literally on top of his mate, half while on a yacht. This coming just days after he liked a video of a guy touching himself on Twitter. The timing is pretty suspicious, isn't it? Like, dude, get a grip. You're engaged with 3 children. His fans were shocked, to say the least. To be fair, I think McGregor didn't really know that Twitter likes are public. Or was it just a mistake? Or maybe, and just maybe, this was his way of coming out of the closet. Whatever the reason behind the like was, it was just awkward for the UFC poster boy. And the picture that followed didn't really help his case. Pretty sure he regrets the whole thing now. It's safe to say that the former UFC fighter has stepped away from the Octagon, but his controversial behavior isn't going away anytime soon. Speaking of controversial behavior,
I think clout is worse than cocaine. These guys are calling me out like it's some type of drug for them. So I mean, hey man, guys, keep talking. Thank you so much.
This UFC fighter, Ryan Garcia, didn't shy away from cheating on his pregnant girlfriend publicly. Now, how do you react when your baby daddy cheats on you and gets caught by paparazzi? You go on Instagram and call him a disgusting and horrible evil person. At least, that's what Drea Salina did when Garcia cheated on her with Cuban singer Malu Trevejo. So what exactly went down between the three? It all started when Drea was visiting her family and Ryan had told her he'd be busy training. Imagine her shock when she finds pictures of him kissing some other girl all over Instagram later. So she decides she's going to handle the whole thing in the most mature way possible and call him out on her Instagram. Jeez. When will people learn to stop airing their dirty laundry in public? Not anytime soon. Malu then shared a video on social media and claimed that she had no idea that Garcia was engaged and had a baby on the way. Ryan, in his defense, made a statement through his IG stories. In a nutshell, he basically blamed it all on getting carried away in the moment, and even said that he and Selena weren't engaged and just in an off and on relationship. Like, that makes the whole thing okay, dude. He continued to say that it was his personal choice and won't speak on the matter after this. One thing is for sure, he certainly regretted getting caught up in the moment afterwards. The whole thing was uncomfortable to witness, honestly. There's a lesson to learn from all these folks. Cheaters will always get caught. While we are on the subject of cheating and getting caught,
many years ago, my first fight was Royce Gracie, UFC number 3.
Wow.
And it was, back then it wasn't MMA, it was NHB, no holds barred.
Yeah.
It was a little bit, it was the fight mentality of the fighters was a little bit more aggressive back then.
this next UFC fighter, Kimo Leopoldo, took things to another level. Now, Kimo was a fighter who was known for his impressive physique, even back in his early years in the UFC. But just like other UFC fighters, he had some bad luck in winning fights for a while. Now, to fix that, most people would just train more, right? But not Kimo. He left the UFC and returned in 2003, and the fans were shocked by his incredible strength. Things took a turn when Kimo had a fight with Ken Shamrock. The former UFC fighter tested positive for using banned drugs to enhance his performance in 2002, and he was suspended by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. This cost him $5,000 in cash and a 6-month suspension. Deserved, but people make mistakes all the time, right? You just have to learn from them and never do it again. That's it. That logic clearly went over Kimo's head because he once again tested positive for the same substance in 2006 and was caught red-handed. If you're going to cheat, at least do it properly.
It's just do something, work his my stand up, hit his legs, kick his legs, That's what I did, and I used the right opportunity to take him down, Basically was that.
Our next fighter, Thiago Silva, didn't get this memo either and ended up in the same situation. Following his UFC 125 victory over Brandon Vera, NSAC found that Silva gave a fake urine sample, and the Brazilian admitted to it. In a hearing, he stated that he was injecting steroids 30 to 45 days before his fight with Brandon. I mean, you really have no choice other than to come clean when your urine sample comes back flagged as being inhuman. The escape route's pretty much gone by this point, and Thiago realized that too. He did play the part part of the regretful kid who was caught with his hand in the cookie jar to perfection. I mean, at first he followed the path of just about everyone else who has been caught using drugs to enhance their performance. Deny, deny, and just deny. But things obviously didn't turn out in his favor. He was given a fine worth $33,750, a 1-year suspension, and his victory was overruled. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Well, guess what? The UFC fighter once again tested positive for drugs in 2012. This time it was marijuana. Just like the last one, this one cost him another victory, and he was suspended for another 6 months. And this is exactly why people say that addiction can become your enemy.
There's absolutely no damage to me. I'm in fine health and shape. I'm just coming off a great fight where I was winning the whole fight and unfortunately got robbed, and the fight got stopped early, so that fight is what it is, but, you know.
Next up is a UFC star, Drew Fickett, who let himself become his biggest enemy. No doubt, Fickett was a hardworking fighter, but the problem was that once he began drinking, he just couldn't stop. It's a common issue, I understand, but not when you have a career in the UFC, and unsurprisingly, it led him to quite a few awkward situations. One time, he had a drunken brawl with a bouncer in Vegas and wreaked havoc all over the city. That eventually led to him getting kicked out of the championship he was competing in. It didn't stop there either. He continued to show up to fights drunk and was kicked out. What's more is that he once missed a flight back to his home just because he was too busy chugging down an entire suitcase of beer. You want to know why? Just because he was prevented from taking it on board. At one point, Drew even invited a homeless person to come live with him. That only lasted a week before the person had enough of Drew's drunkenness. How toxic do you have to be that a person would rather live on the streets than with you? So embarrassing.
Paul Jones, which Paul Jones fought in the UFC, he fought Chuck Liddell a couple of times. I think just once, and he fought there a few. Heath Herring was in there, and the crowd was just screaming.
But this final fighter, Paul Buentello, really pushed the limit of embarrassment a person can face. Every time MMA awkwardness of any kind is discussed in forums throughout the world, this Paul Buentello post-fight speech will always come up. Now, this is what really went down. Buentello figured that after winning one of his UFC fights, he'd have enough supporters to get them to join him in a chant. Nothing wrong in that, right? But wait for it. The plan was for them to finish the line, "Don't fear me, fear the consequences." When he excitedly said the first part of the statement, there was a deafening quiet that could have been accompanied by a rolling bale of hay. I'm not kidding, guys. There was pin drop silence. Honestly, the embarrassment would just kill me alive. While Buentello hasn't participated in an MMA fight since 2016, this will remain in MMA forums as the most awkward moment for eternity. To be fair, an awkward legacy is still a legacy, isn't it? One thing's for sure, Paul must have regretted the moment he decided to chant big time. Well, that's a wrap for this video.
As always, thanks for dropping in on us today. And remember to stop by again next time for some more fun reveals. And why not do us a big favor by liking and sharing today's video, while also subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on more great bits in the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
It's just do something, work is my stand up, hit his leg, kick his legs, that's what I did, and I used the right opportunity to take him down,